Vivek Chudamani, presented by Svayam Prakash Sharma, Part 15. Part 15 consists of verses 406 to 434, in which the Guru continues his discourse on Brahm and begins telling about the characteristics of the person who is liberated in life. Vivek Chudamani. That which is superimposed on something else is observed by the wise to be identical to the substratum on which it is superimposed, as in the case of the rope appearing as the snake. The snake that is seen because of superimposition is actually in reality the rope itself. The apparent difference that is seen by the ignorant depends on and lasts only as long as the error lasts. Once the error is realized, then the rope is seen for what it actually is. Then it is seen in its real form of the rope. This apparent universe that we see, this universe has its root in the mind, and it never persists after the mind is annihilated. Therefore, dissolve the mind by concentrating it on the Supreme Self, by concentrating the mind on the Param Atma, which is your own utmost essence. Through Samadhi, the wise man realizes in his heart and intellect the infinite Brahm, which is something of the nature of eternal knowledge and absolute bliss, and which cannot be expressed in terms of speech and thought, and which has none like it, which transcends all limitations, which goes beyond all limitations, which is ever free and without activity, and which is like the sky, limitless, indivisible, and absolute. Through Samadhi, the wise man realizes in his heart and intellect the infinite Brahm, which is devoid of the ideas of cause and effect, which is the reality beyond all imaginations, which is homogeneous, which is matchless, which is beyond the range of proofs other than revelation, namely, other than direct perception and inference. The infinite Brahm is established by the pronouncement of the Vedas, and therefore it cannot be denied, and it is ever familiar to us as the sense of the ego. Through Samadhi, the wise man realizes in his heart and intellect the infinite Brahm, which is undecaying and immortal, which is the positive entity that precludes all negations, which resembles the placid ocean and is without a name. There are no merits or demerits in the infinite Brahm, and it is eternal, pacified, and one. With the mind restrained in Samadhi, behold in your own self, behold in your Atma, the Atma of infinite glory, and cut off all the bondages that have been strengthened by the impressions of previous births, and carefully attain the consummation of your birth as a human being. That is, carefully attain moksha, which is preeminently possible in the human birth. Meditate on the Atma that resides in you as your own being, the Atma that is devoid of all limiting adjuncts, the Sat Chit Anand, the existence, knowledge, bliss absolute, the one without a second, and you shall never again come under the round of birth and death. You shall be freed from the cycle of birth and death. After the body has been cast off to a distance like a corpse, the sage never again attaches himself to it, though it is visible as an appearance like the shadow of a man, owing to the experience of the effects of the past deeds of previous births. Realizing the Atma, the eternal, the pure, the knowledge and bliss, throw this limitation of a body, which is inert and filthy by nature, throw this limitation of a body far away, then do not ever remember it again, because it is something that has been vomited out and excites only disgust when called to memory, when remembered. Burning all this, the objective universe, which is the non-self, which is the non-atma, then burning it with its very root, which is ignorance, burning all this in the fire of Brahm, the eternal and absolute self, the truly wise man thereafter remains alone as the Atma, the eternal, the pure knowledge and bliss. The knower of truth then no longer cares whether the body that has been spun out of the threads of prarabdha works, the works of previous birth, whether that body falls or remains like a garland on the neck of a cow, because his mind functions are at rest in the Brahm, the essence of bliss. Realizing the infinite bliss, the Atma, as his own very Atma, with what object for or for whom should the knower of truth cherish the body like normal people of the world? The knower of truth never thinks of himself as the enjoyer, as the experiencer, as the experience, or as the Jeev. The yogi who has attained perfection and is liberated in life, he gets this as a result. He enjoys eternal bliss in his mind, both internally as well as externally. You should know that the result of dispassion is knowledge. The result of knowledge is withdrawal from the sense pleasures. And this leads to the experience of the bliss of the self, of the Atma. And from this follows peace. In this sequence, it is necessary that every stage has a succeeding stage. If there is an absence of the succeeding stages, then the preceding stages are futile. When the series is perfect, then the cessation of the objective world, extreme satisfaction and matchless bliss follows as a matter of routine, as a matter of course. The result of knowledge is being unruffled by earthly troubles. How can a person who did various loathsome deeds during the state of delusion, how can he commit the same loathsome deeds afterwards when he is possessed of discrimination? Once a person becomes possessed of discrimination, then he can no longer commit the loathsome deeds that he committed in the state of delusion. The result of knowledge should be the turning away from unreal things, while the result of ignorance is attachment to unreal things. This is observed in the case of a person who knows the reality of a mirage and things of that sort, and a person who does not know the reality of the mirage and the like. What other tangible results do the knowers of Brahm obtain? The man who knows the reality of the mirage, he laughs at the illusion and passes on. But the ignorant man who does not know the reality, he mistakes the mirage for water and rushes in to quench his thirst. To the sage, the world appears no doubt, but he knows it to be unreal, and therefore he is not lured by it. Not so the ignorant man of the world, who falls into the temptations of the world and is trapped by them. If the knot of ignorance of the heart is totally destroyed, what natural cause can there be for inducing such a person to selfish actions? The man who is averse to sense pleasures. When the sense objects no longer excite desire, then there's an accumulation of dispassion. The extreme perfection of knowledge is the absence of any impulsion of the egoistic idea, and the limit of self-withdrawal is reached. When the mind functions that have been merged, when those mind functions do not appear anymore, freed from all sense of reality of the external sense objects on account of his always remaining in Brahm, only seeming to enjoy such sense objects that are offered to him by others, like one who is half asleep or like a child. Seeing the world as one that is seen in a dream, and having cognition of it at chance moments, rare indeed, and most fortunate is a person who is the enjoyer of the fruits of endless merit. And he alone is blessed and esteemed on earth. The sannyasi, that sannyasi has got steady illumination, who, having his soul fully merged in Brahm, enjoys eternal bliss, is changeless, and is free from activity. That kind of mental function which cognizes why the identity of the self and Brahm, pacified of all adjuncts, by eliminating all the accidental adjuncts and meditating on the common substratum Brahm, the Absolute, which is free from all duality and which concerns itself only with pure intelligence, is called illumination. The person who has this state perfectly steady, he is called a person of steady illumination. Now, I will tell you about the person who is liberated in life. The person whose illumination is steady, who has constant bliss, and who has almost forgotten the phenomenal universe. Such a person is accepted as a man who is liberated in this very life. The person who, even though he has his mind merged in Brahm, is nevertheless quite alert. That is, he never deviates from the ideal life of a jnani, but who at the same time is free from the characteristics of the waking state, such as cognizing the objective world through the senses and being attached to it, like the ignorant man who is free from these characteristics and whose realization is free from desires. Such a person is accepted as a man who is liberated in life. The person whose cares about the phenomenal world have been appeased, that is, who no longer worries about how his bondage will cease and so on, who, though he is possessed of a body that consists of parts, is yet devoid of parts, just as Brahm is devoid of parts, and whose mind is free from anxiety. Such a person is accepted as a man who is liberated in life. The characteristic of a man who is liberated in life is the absence of the idea of I and mine, even in this existing body which follows as a shadow. Other characteristics of a person who is liberated in life are: 1. Not dwelling on enjoyments of the past. 2. Not thinking about the future. And 3. Looking with indifference upon the present. The world is so full of diversity, yet the man of realizations looks deeper and sees the one Brahm in everything, looking everywhere with an eye of equality in this world that is full of elements that possess merits and demerits, and that are distinct by nature from one another. Seeing everything as Brahm is a characteristic of a person who is liberated in life. When things pleasant or painful present themselves, to remain unruffled in mind in both the cases, through the sameness of attitude, that is, treating both the pleasant and the painful as the same, is a characteristic of a person who is liberated in life. Yes, treating both the pleasant and the painful as the same is a characteristic of a person who is liberated in life. This concludes part 15 of Vivek Chudamani. Om Shanti 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 Om.